Welcome to one more session. Today we are going to study about the iteration. In the last two sessions we have discussed about the sequential part, that how the steps are being followed one after the other. Now today and then just after that we have done with the selection part, that how we're going to select. We studied about the if condition, else if as well in the pseudocode, and now we will be coming towards the iteration part, that how we're going to loop it again and again, how we are going to repeat the program stuff again and again, and similarly how are we gonna do that into our programming, like basically in our pseudocodes. So we do have a program right over here, draw a flowchart that prints draw a flowchart that prints sum of the first 10 odd numbers. Okay, now they are saying about the first 10 odd numbers. Do remember, they're not saying about the 10 odd numbers from the first 10 numbers. They are saying about the first 10 odd numbers. Make sure for this thing. So what are the first 10 odd numbers? We do have a 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and then we do have 11, 13, 15, 17, and then finally 19. So this is how your 10 odd numbers are created, 1, 3, 5. So we do not need to actually mention every number. We need the program to calculate by its own. So how are we going to calculate it by its own? So we do have a general concept that what is the first odd number. So for the first odd number is 1. Now what number should be added each time to this thing or to this number, that we will be adding the next odd number. So do remember that we need to add 2 into it. So each time 2 is added into the number, we will be getting the next odd number. Like for example, 1 plus 2 will be giving you a 3. Now 3 plus 2 will be giving you a 5. 5 plus 2 will be giving you a 7. 7 plus 2 will be giving you a 9. So that means each time I'm gonna add 2 to a number, so that means it will be giving me the next odd number, but the condition applies that the numbers do starts from 1. If you're going to start the number with a 0, so obviously adding 2 to the 0 will be giving you a 2. So that's not an odd number, that's an even number. So they are saying about the first 10 odd numbers. So what I have mentioned over here, again I did a similar mistake right over here, that I have mentioned the keyword with this small letters in the sentence case. I need to convert it to the block letters. So here I go. Okay, so start. Just after the start, what I'm going to do, I say that right over here I've declared and initialized the first variable, that is with the name of the num. Now num is being initialized with the value 1. That means 1 is the first 10 odd number. So we are going to initialize 1, or we are just going to initialize the first odd number, so that it should be calculating with the other odd numbers by its own. Now then it comes to the count. Now what do I utilize the count for? Now count is usually utilized to count, or you may say that to have an increment or to have a decrement, or just to check it out how many times the loop has been executed, how many times the instruction has been executed. So count is for this stuff. Now the value, the base value for the count could be 0 as well, and it could be 1 as well, but usually we do start from a 1. Yeah, but we can start with a 0 as well. So starting from the 0, what the difference we will be having in this program, I will be letting you know afterwards. So first of all, let's assume that we are having the base value as 1 right away. So we need to execute the count how many times, that actually we need to execute the program 10 times. So what will be the final value for the count? So starting from 1, when the first time the loop is going to execute, the value for the count will be 2. That means then 3, then 5. So it will be going till 11, because 1 is the base value. So as soon as you are gonna execute the loop for the very first time, obviously that means you have executed loop one time. That means there will be an increment in the counter. One step ahead you have moved. So once you have moved ahead, that means the value for the count is going to be 2. That means when 10th time you are gonna move, so that means the value for the count will be 11 at the moment. It will be 11 at the moment. Then sum, again we are having sum over here because they are saying to have the sum this time. If they don't ask the sum to be there, then we do not need the sum, but they are asking about the sum. Sum means, or sum can be said as the total as well. So total or sum with a base value for 0. Now do remember, neither the num, neither the count, neither the sum, neither of them are the user defined values. They are either the base values or the predefined. values. In this program, all of them are the base values. Now what are we gonna do? Just after that, once we have initialized each of this stuff, we have declared and we have initialized. Now we say sum will be having a sum plus num. Now what do I mean by that? Now over here, if you can look, this is not the part of the flowchart. It is actually the representation, or you may say the that how the loop is going to execute. So pass one means when the loop is first time executed. So it says sum is equivalent to sum plus, or sum is actually assigned with the value sum plus num. So the first value for sum was 0 and the first value for the num was 1. So 0 plus 1. When the loop is executed first time, when the loop is executed for the very first time, the value of sum has been updated to 1. The value of sum has been updated to 1 because 0 plus 1 gives you a 1. And num plus 2, because why we are having num plus 2? Because to find the next odd number, as we just discussed in this program earlier. So 1 plus 2 will be giving you a next odd number. Now obviously the loop has been executed one time. That means there will be an increment in the counter as well. So the value for the count is 2. So it says if count is less than or equal to 10. Is that so? Yes, it is. That means we are going to repeat the similar task again. That means again we are going to find the sum, then num plus 2. Now the second time when the loop is going to execute. So the value for sum last updated was 1. So over here 1. And the value for num, the last updated value for num was 3. So this time 1 plus 3 will be there, and we will be having the updated value of sum. That updated value will be 4. Similarly for num, the last updated value was 3. So now 3 plus 2, we will be getting the updated value 5. And this time the counter is going to be 3. So this is how we will be doing that until unless the value for the count reaches 11. Because once earlier as I told you that one time when the loop was executed, or the first time when the loop was executed, so the count value was 2 at that moment. So that means when the second time is going to execute, so the count value will be 3. Then for the third time it will be 4. That means at the 10th time the count value will be 11. So it says if count is less than or equal to 11, less than 10. Yeah, it is 11 now. So is it less than or equal to 10? No, it is not. So what we are going to do, we are just simply going to output the sum. Now let's assume you made a mistake that this num plus 2 goes up and this sum equals to sum assigned with the value sum plus num comes down. That means you are doing that in this manner. Num plus 2 and sum will be assigned with the value sum plus num. Now what is going to happen? Is this right? No, it is not. Why not? Because when the first time the program is going to execute, at that time the initial value was for the num was 1. Now before the sum, the value of the num updated itself to 3. That means I wasn't able to find the sum for the first output. I wasn't first odd number. I wasn't able to find the sum of the first odd number. I always started the sum from the second odd number. So we cannot swap these two boxes. They need to remain in the similar order in this scenario. Make sure for the flowcharts and the pseudocodes that you need to practice them. Yes, I can give you the videos, I can give you the concepts, but until unless you're not going to practice them out, you cannot learn this. Okay, as the principal examiner for the Cambridge also says that you need to have the practice and practice for the pseudocodes and the flowcharts. Until unless you're not going to have it, the practice for these things, you're not going to excel in these things. Okay, so coming back to the topic, so as I just told you that it is a count control loop. Why the count control loop? Because it already says 10 odd numbers, first 10 odd numbers. Now how are we going to execute this thing into the loop structure? So before that, let me come to the appendix, or you may say the insert as well. Okay, now repetition, iteration, or looping. As you can see right over here, we do have the unconditional and the conditional looping. Now it is an unconditional loop because it's a count control loop. So for the count control loop, we do utilize the for to next loop. For to next. So for tells you about the loop. To means the range. from where till where, and next is actually the ending of it. So for the variable name that has been initialized with the value 1 and to the given range, the statement, that means whatever you're going to do is you're going to print or you're going to process or you're going to do something like that. These are the statements. And finally next and the variable name. Do remember that this next right over here is utilized for the increment of 1 as well as it checks whether it has fulfilled the range or not. For example, the range was 5 over here, so every time this program comes over here, so it's incrementing the variable by 1 every time, and it also checks whether this 5 times it has been executed or not. As soon as it is executed 5 times, it comes out of the loop. So let's see for the first 10 odd numbers how we're going to create a pseudocode for this thing. So here we are. So it says write a program that prints the sum of the first 10 odd numbers. Now how are we going to do that? I just declared num, I declared count, I declared sum, and all of them are having a data type of an integer. All of them are having a data type of an integer. Now over here I initialize the num only and I initialize the sum only. I did not initialize the count, as count was number of times loop has been executed. Number of times loop needs to be executed, the programs need to be executed. So how I'm gonna do that? It says for count. Now over here, why I haven't initialized? Because the count has been initialized within the for loop. How? 1 till 10. So we have defined the range over here. So 1 to 10. So for count 1 to 10, now what are we going to do? We were having the sum, we were having the num plus 2, and then we were having the count plus 1. So I told you earlier that next is doing the increment in the count as well. That means count plus 1, as well as it checks whether the loop has been executed for this limit or not. If the loop has been executed for this limit, so it will be simply giving you the output double inverted commas, that means it will be printed as it is. Value for sum is, and within this sum, that means the comma, sorry, the value of the sum, whatever the sum value is over there, it will be printed. And again repeating myself, these brackets are obsoleted for the AS levels, whereas for the O levels it is over there. Okay, so you need to remove the brackets if you are in the AS levels. If you are in the O levels, you do not need to remove these brackets. Other than that, the things remains same. One more thing. Now this sum and this num were indent over here because they need to only execute if you are into this for loop. If you are not into this for loop, then you do not need to execute these two statements. So these two statements are actually dependent on the for loop. They will be executed only once the for loop is going to execute. Other than that, nothing was dependent on anything. So they were in a similar indentation. So that was all for the iteration or for the looping. Yeah, we haven't done one more type of the looping, that will be the conditional looping. We haven't done that. So in the next session, we will be doing with the conditional looping. Thank you so much, guys.